Okay, so staying informed, it really shouldn't feel like another full-time job,
Right.
right?
There's so much coming at us.
And this week, well, there's a significant solar storm they're saying is heading our way, the kind of thing that could actually, impact our daily lives.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been looking closely at the reports. NASA, space weather agencies,
Yeah.
they're all indicating a period of pretty intense solar activity. We definitely need to understand what's happening.
And when you say impact, we're talking about maybe surprising things like internet going down, flights, that kind of stuff.
Potentially, yes. Internet disruptions, satellite problems, grounded flights, maybe even power outages. It's a wide range.
Okay, so the big question then is, what is really going on up there? And, well, how worried should we actually be?
Well, the core issue is heightened solar activity. The sun's
Mhm.
been quite active, releasing solar flares. Those are big bursts of energy. And also coronal mass ejections, CMEs.
CMEs, right.
Think of them as these giant clouds of plasma and magnetic fields erupting from the sun. And this time, a pretty significant one seems to be aimed, well, towards Earth.
Aimed right at us. Okay, so what happens when this solar blast actually gets here?
It can trigger what we call a geomagnetic storm. Essentially, the CME's magnetic field slams into Earth's magnetic field, our megasphere, and it causes disturbances.
Disturbances, and that's what messes with our tech.
That's the connection. These disturbances are what can cause problems for technology.
So things like my GPS may be going wonky all of a sudden.
That's a definite possibility, yeah.
GPS relies completely on satellite signals, and these storms can interfere with those signals, making it less accurate or maybe even unavailable for a time.
Okay.
And it's the thing for the whole satellite network, really. Phones, internet, military comms, weather forecasting, they all depend on satellites.
And airlines, too. You mentioned flights.
Yeah, especially flights going over the polar regions. The
Yeah.
magnetic field lines sort of converge there, making navigation systems more vulnerable during a storm. Right. Okay, but the power grid thing, that just sounds really serious.
It is serious. It's one of the biggest concerns. These geomagnetic storms, they can actually induce electrical currents in the ground.
In the ground. Wow.
Yeah, GICs, geomagnetically induced currents. And these currents can then flow into anything long and conductive, like power lines or pipelines.
To overload them.
Exactly. They could push transformers past their limits, causing damage, leading to blackouts. We saw this happen famously back in 1989 in Quebec.
Oh, right. The Quebec blackout. That affected millions, didn't it?
6 million people, yeah. And what was really striking about that, beyond just the lights going out, was how it showed the grid's vulnerability. A problem in one spot cascaded, knocked out power across a huge area very quickly.
And we're arguably even more dependent on that grid now.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
yeah, billions in potential damage for a big storm, maybe parts of the digital world temporarily going dark. It's not science fiction.
What else? You mentioned astronauts.
Well, yeah, there's increased radiation risk for astronauts on the International Space Station. They have procedures for that. And airlines might reroute flights away from the poles.
But there's a cool side effect too, right? The northern lights.
Yes. On the upside, these storms push the auroras, the northern and southern lights, further towards the equator. So you might see them in places that normally don't get a show, maybe even New York or Germany, for instance.
Wow. Okay, so from beautiful lights to potentially widespread outages, that's quite the range. Are we actually doing anything to get ready for this kind of thing?
We are, yes. There are efforts. We have satellites watching the sun constantly, giving us some warning, maybe hours, sometimes days. That's the Space Weather Prediction Center's job, mainly.
So we get a heads up.
We get some lead time. And our satellites often have better shielding. Our forecasting models are also getting better, more sophisticated all the time. But, the sun is incredibly powerful.
Which brings up that term. I've seen a Carrington-level event. That sounds ominous. What is that?
Right, the Carrington event, that was back in 1859. It's pretty much the benchmark for a monster solar storm, the biggest one we have good records for.
Before electricity was widespread, though.
Exactly. But even then, its effects were dramatic. It fried telegraph systems across the globe. Some operators got shocks, wires sparked, some offices even reportedly caught fire. Imagine that kind of energy hitting our modern, digitally dependent world.
Yeah, that would be something else entirely. Catastrophic, maybe.
It would be incredibly disruptive on a global scale, far beyond anything like the Quebec event.
And you mentioned the sun's activity is increasing. We're heading towards something called the solar maximum.
Correct. The sun goes through roughly an 11-year cycle of activity from minimum to maximum and back. We're currently ramping up towards the peak of the current cycle, solar cycle 25.
So does that mean we should expect more of these storms? Or stronger ones?
It means the probability increases, yes. More activity generally means more flares, more CMEs, and a higher chance of strong geomagnetic storms hitting Earth. It's a direct relationship.
Okay, so wrapping this up. The sun's getting stormier. We have some ways to predict and maybe protect ourselves. But a really big one could still cause major, major problems for our technology.
That's a good summary. We have defenses, we have warnings,
Mhm.
but the sheer power involved means the potential for significant disruption is very real. It's a serious consideration.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Given how much we rely on all this tech now, stuff that's vulnerable to the sun, are we actually factoring these solar risks into our planning enough? Our infrastructure? Something to definitely keep pondering.